Now, staying on the weather, the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, on its part, has predicted thundery and rainy weather activities across the country from today, that's yesterday, to Wednesday. NiMet's weather outlook released yesterday also warns of possible flash floods in some areas. NiMet predicts the morning thunderstorms in Abuja, with moderate rains in parts of Adamawa, Taraba, Sokoto, Kebbi, Zamfara, Jigawa, Kano, and Katsina states in the north. Now, in the central region, the agency says there are prospects of light rains over parts of Benue, the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, Niger, Kogi, and Nasarawa states. The agency anticipates light rain over parts of Ebonyi, Enugu, Imo, Anambra, Abia, Ogun, Edo, Delta, Lagos, Rivers, Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and Bayelsa states in the south. NiMet is appealing to the public to follow all safety guidelines. It also warns states with a possibility of flash flood to activate their emergency response systems immediately. Now, for more on the imminent weather conditions and the need for adequate strategies, an environmentalist, Nimo Basi, joins me virtually. Good to have you join us.
Thank you so much.
So now we're already seeing floods across even states where NiMet has said it was going to be light rain. For example, Lagos was part of the state where it had mentioned light rain and yet was seeing heavy floods in the Ikorodu area like we just showed. What's your thought on all of this? And what does it say about the preparedness of states?
I think what we're seeing now should be alarming to everyone, but it shouldn't really take us by surprise because we're seeing more rains due to primarily the season we're in, where we're having global warming, climate change. We're expecting more and more of this kind of weather events that are more than what we used to have. And so it shouldn't really take us by surprise. And as rightly noted, the issue now should be how prepared are we? How ready are we to take actions that would curtail the amount of impact, the damage that we're suffering from this kind of flooding happening? Why are we having the flooding? Why couldn't we have a system that takes care of the flood? These are some questions that require to be addressed. Most of our cities don't have drainage plans. They don't have drainage infrastructure. Even our villages, of course, are so neglected and abandoned. But, at every level, every place where you have human habitation, there has to be a plan to handle floods, a plan to handle unusual or heavy rainfalls. We can't just take everything for chance and get our people floating off or subsumed in floods. Whenever this happens, we've had an history of disastrous flooding in this nation. Remember 2012? That was one of the worst experiences in this country, and in fact, across Africa in recent times. We lost over 1,000 lives. And in 2022, the same thing happened. We had another disastrous flooding scenario. And even this year, in May this year at Mokwa in Niger State, we had very unusual flooding at a place that nobody expected it would happen. So we have to be in a state of readiness and preparedness.
And there is also the Borno floods. And the bad thing is that we continue to lose lives to something that can be avoided. I spoke with the man in charge of forecasts at NiMet yesterday, Professor Welly, and he said, look, they're not impressed with how states are cooperating with them. In fact, most states are not even cooperating at all. And I'm wondering, because there's also the pre-season forecast, which is supposed to help you prepare. But where do you think that the states are actually missing it?
Not only the states, even the local government. Some people different structures like to say, well, we're not involved in that. It's the federal government that should do this. But the states should have flood handling action plans. They simply have to have prepared to tackle this kind of crisis and to take care of the people. This is because of this lack of readiness at these subnational levels that we're having the compounding of the problems with flooding. And so states really have to wake up, because you can't wash your hands off and say, well, somebody from Abuja has to take care of this. Now, if states put their own plans in place, they can now call on Abuja and say, we've done what we could do. We need to do more because you have the higher budget. And so states are the ones controlling urban development. They're the ones controlling development of rural communities. And so they need to pay more attention and ensure that our towns have not just drainage master plans, but master plans. Right now, Our cities are growing autonomously. They are growing. People are just building wherever they feel like building. If you ask around, very few of our cities have properly done master plans. And so without a proper plan, you cannot really avoid the disasters that we are seeing. And, they have to do some regulations, even at village levels. Don't build at this place. Don't fill up. Don't put concrete over. Don't build on our wetlands.
And because you mentioned that, Mr. Bassey, because the states are also accusing residents of clogging the drainage, and that's perhaps one of the challenges. I also just wanted to ask you, first of all, in terms of safety guidelines in this season, what should residents be doing? And then, just general behavioral change on the parts of residents.
Well, at a certain level, everybody has a responsibility to keep safe. For example, if I live in a village that is always getting flooded, I know that places in Niger Delta like John Kramer in River State, if you go to those communities, you see levels on their walls. The lines are there. In this year, the flood was up to this level. In the other year, the flood was at this level. So they know that this would happen every time. And, it's just that people don't have the means to relocate. Otherwise, people should also move to places that are less prone to this kind of unchecked flooding. But the issue of blockage of drainage, it's one thing to say people are blocking drainage, but it's also a matter of policy failure. We're still dragging our feet about stopping single-use plastics, and a lot of plastics are blocking drainage systems. And the way people take care of the waste in their compound, domestic waste, but there's no one to dispose of them. We don't have properly designed waste disposal locations. All this contribute to having waste flood.
I guess from what you're saying,
drainage channels and cause flooding.
It looks like, Mr. Bassey, the bulk falls on the table of the state government. Thank you so much for your time. The Executive Director of Health of Mother Earth Foundation, Nimo Bassey, always a pleasure to have you on.